Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of It's Time with Mickela Panday. When I first started this podcast, the aim was to discuss both social and political issues, from constitutional reform to mental health, which was the topic of our discussion last week. This week, we will be discussing the ongoing epidemic of violence against women in our country, in wake of the horrific news of yet another murdered young woman, Kezia Janika Guerra. Joining me today is the beautiful and talented, award-winning author, broadcaster, and motivational speaker, my Virago sister, Michelle Borel. Thank you for joining me today, sister.
Thank you so much for having me, Mickela. It's an honor to be with you, my sister, my Virago sister.
Absolutely, absolutely. Violence against women is once again on the increase. From domestic violence to brutal murder. Everyone agrees that it has to stop. But I've never seen any sort of, comprehensive plan where perhaps we look at both short-term things that can be done and also long-term things that can be done. In that sense, if we were to first look, for example, at long-term plans, I was thinking a change in attitude and what your views were towards domestic violence. Because what happens is, for me, unless a horrific death has somehow occurred, it doesn't hit the newspaper, and we still tend to treat it as the usual part of life.
Yes.
What's your views on that, Michelle?
I think what you're saying is very profound. We need a continuous conversation. As Dr. Miles Monroe says, he says we don't have societal issues. We have individual problems which impact our society. And very often you find persons staying away from such issues because, one, they may think it's too heavy a subject. Two, some persons, they love to use the frame, especially within the Caribbean. We have heard the term, that is man and woman business.
Yes.
You also hear persons saying, she looked for that, or he looked for that. And we need to change the way we perceive this. We need to challenge our perception. So it is really an individual change that we need to come in each individual for the society to truly be impacted. And it starts with the way we raise our children. It starts with the way we treat ourselves as individuals. Because I think once, especially as a woman, I feel in my life, I got a very different experience when I experienced peace within. When I became a better me, I found that everything around me felt like a better we. And I say that because when you build your confidence, when you work on yourself, when you are consistently looking for ways in which you can be not only a better person to yourself, you find it extending to the persons that are closest to you. And then the wave continues, and then it expands into your community, and then the nation, and then you're making an international impact. You just continue to shine. You have to look to
I love that.
On the light.
I love that. I love that. And I think also one of the things, again, just looking at long-term solutions, Michelle, is perhaps to start awareness in schools.
Indeed.
As young as primary schools. I know a lot of parents, sometimes for religious reasons, perhaps maybe hesitant to have these kinds of discussions.
Yes.
But with the advent of the internet and social media platforms, hundreds of them, we need to start talking to our children before others start even speaking to them. And I think it's important that we talk to boys and girls, because so often we just want to tell the girls, don't walk there in the night, always have a friend. It's us girls have to do things. When what we really should be telling the boys also is, well, it's not okay for you to do that. You know, we need to talk about gender roles. We need to talk about respect. We need to talk about consent. We need to talk about accountability. And I know you've got kids, so it's important to me, your view. When is too young to have a conversation? For me, primary school, but I don't know your view.
I believe it's never too young because
Right.
children, some things are taught, but some things are caught. So I believe the environment that we have for our children, they're starting to learn, they're picking up on things, and how we treat them, they in turn treat others. So we're always teaching. So it's never too early for someone to learn, and it's the same way as it's never too late. So we need to constantly teach people not only how they should treat others, but we teach people to how to treat us all the time. We're consistently teaching people how to treat us, and it's okay to speak up and let persons know, I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to that type of language. I don't subscribe to that type of behavior, or learning to move yourself away from a situation. It's okay to take time out. It's okay to go to where you feel safe. It's important for children to learn what is a good feeling, what is a bad feeling, being able to connect with that and giving children a voice. Very often, very often we have this tendency to not allow
Talk to and not with.
And it is important that we hear them. There is a concept that I think of every time I think of families or any sort of disputes. Things really pile up, and it's more or less like a kettle. When you close it up and everything is getting heated, you hear that, ooh, it's going off. But if we were to allow the space to be open, it might be boiling, but we wouldn't have that kind of effect. So it's angry, but sin not in your anger. It is okay to not be okay, the same way as it's okay to be okay. But we need to be open to dialogue, be open to allowing ourselves to speak and others to speak too. We need to listen just as much as we would speak.
I agree. And I've been part of women's group and young women's group in more of my adult life and at university. And one of the things that I always used to say was, I felt that within these groups that men should also be members. I think men need to be part of the conversation. We need to look sometimes at the root cause as whether this is a pattern learned from personal experiences, and give them a chance also to speak. And I feel sometimes as groups, whether we're discussing things, men should be invited. We're talking about young boys, but those are those we can still save, and young girls, but they're within our society today. We have men who need to be part of this conversation to tell us what's also going on in their head. And sorry to say, but we go back to the whole culture thing, but that's not really a Caribbean man cultural kind of thing.
Yes. And very often, you hear, what you're crying for? Don't cry. Boys not supposed to cry, and we need to allow it to be okay. Men have feelings too, the same way women have feelings. While we understand that some may be more emotional or more sensitive, at the same time we have to allow all persons to be able to express themselves. But I do agree with you in terms of we have to have the conversation going and not let it be only on one side. Let it be on both sides, so we have that balance and good standing.
Exactly. And we keep on saying that, what is the best way forward? And one of the things that comes to mind for me is that in Trinidad and Tobago, the data collection is very poor. To a certain extent, a lot of this type of crime is not reported.
Yes.
But I still feel the data collection process in a technologically advanced era, so to say, I think we should be doing better than that. I think if we are going to be able to look and develop policies, look at successful prevention measures, I feel that we're going to have to hear more from people. Do you think it's that people don't feel, Michelle, women and men as well, to an extent? We see there's been a rise in domestic violence against men, but it is predominantly women, which is why I'm focusing on women today. But do you know, why do you think that there's still, is it a stigma that people don't want to report it, or that they don't feel that anyone's listening?
Several things. There's so many reasons that pop up. You have some persons who feel embarrassed. They don't want anyone to know, because there's something that happens in which you start to feel as though you're losing your confidence. You start to feel like, why me? And you feel very embarrassed because you wonder, how is it such a thing could have happened to me? You know, what would somebody think? Would they think that I am the person that's really at fault? You know, and there's all this judgment that is coming to you even before it is brought to the light. So there's that in terms of embarrassment. And there's also the thought of, you're not sure if anybody is really listening. Thirdly, there's the situation of it. All right, you come out with it, then what? Where would you live? What would you do? How would you be able to then thrive after that? So there's so many.
That's so super, because what you've done and what you've raised from the long-term solutions and possible solutions that we were just discussing, it really kind of takes us into, strangely, some short-term solutions as well. Because again, we come back to, when a report is made, there must be an investigation and follow-up, especially when there have been multiple reports. Now, I am not swiping everybody with the same brush, but I can tell you many women who have come to me, who have gone to make reports, who have said they haven't even been written down. Imagine we're still writing reports on pen and paper today, but still, it hasn't been written up. There is no follow-up. And then the one that gets me the most is this. When there are multiple reports coming from the same residence, or coming from the same home, or coming from the same phone number, often it is ignored.
Yes. Especially,
I don't know if you've heard things like that.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially if it could possibly be someone of influence. If the aggressor or the perpetrator is the individual who is someone who has a lot of weight in their community. The other question about it is, on the other end, some persons believe that, all right, someone may always make a report, but nothing comes of this. They always go back to the situation. But we need to understand that many times a victim or a survivor, before they're truly able to leave, they may repeat that circumstance at least 7 times.
Yeah, sometimes for years.
Yes.
Sometimes for years. And then we're going to the issue of, I'm not saying everybody, but for me it shouldn't even be one. When you go to make a report, it's not always you can get a female police officer, but there is a level of victim shaming.
Yes.
That prevents you sometimes and makes you want to go again. You have victim shaming in the community.
Right.
And all of these things, to me, prevents women from making any kind of report. And why I'm scared is that it doesn't get up, you don't overnight get to a situation where a woman is murdered.
Yes.
It's a build-up. And how, we can encourage women to speak out. Do you think the system is failing? Do you think society is failing? Do you think as family members we're failing? Do you feel as neighbors we're failing? Do you feel as law enforcers we're failing? Or is it a combination? I mean, what's your views?
I believe it's a combination of everything. And again, I'm really reflecting on this Dr. Miles Monroe quotation in terms of we don't have societal issues. We have individual problems which impact the society. So we need to get into the homes. Very often people like to turn a blind eye because it's those same phrases we were talking about in terms of not my business,
Yeah.
me and them, man and woman business. I don't want to get involved. She's going back, or you see him,
Yeah.
you realize, because it's both ways and there are different forms of abuse. Even within some of our workplaces, there's abuse that is taking place.
Absolutely.
To our in so many different areas of our lives. So if as individuals we can think of, are we a part of the solution or are we a part of the problem? What are we
I agree.
to make our homes, our communities, our nation, and the world at large better?
When we had the horrific two young ladies who were horrifically murdered, we had protests, and I thought it was right. I think those law enforcers, I think we went back to the parliament. But I have always believed, Michelle, that we can pass 1 billion laws. If they're not being enforced, what's the purpose?
I agree
What's
with
the
that.
purpose?
Enforcement is key.
Right? We could go on and on and on and on and on. When we do that, what are we saying as individuals if we see, like we were just chatting, something happening with our neighbor?
Right.
We need more. I mean, you always need more of something, but we need more services for survivors, counseling, shelters for women. Because sometimes I've had people say, well, if I call and say what's happening to my neighbor, how is that helping?
Right.
I don't know what your view is on that. Is it that we are afraid ourselves to get involved by actually even calling the police?
I think many times some persons in various situations would be very timid in making a call because they don't want, it's that whole feeling of not wanting to get involved. You don't want the drama yourself, but you don't realize, again, using local terms, when you see your neighbor's house burning down, start to wet your own. But it's not only in terms of literal fire, it's even in terms of things like that, because we are always experiencing trauma in different ways. Although you're not the person in the household, think of it, you're being impacted. Everything that happens to another, it's impacting you too. So if you do nothing about it, you are really part of the problem. You are part of the issue. We need to be silent and do something. Ask yourself, would you allow someone who is experiencing that level of pain into your home? How would you react if someone were to come to you and say, listen, this just happened? What is going to be your response? How are you going to deal with it? We need to understand sometimes too, persons are lashing out. So we need to get to the root of the cause, because it's not always what would meet the eye. We need to go behind the wall that is in front of us and see what is behind that, and really keep taking off those layers of the onion until we get to the core. And the core is we need to really have those individuals on the whole. What are we doing in terms of a holistic approach with how we deal with things, even in the way we correct children? That right there is so very important.
No, you're absolutely right. I've been thinking, none of us, as reclusive as we may be, none of us, we're not an island. So we'll have family members, we'll have neighbors, we'll have co-workers. And I think there's no one who can say that they haven't experienced something, or at least a huge percentage of us must have experienced something or seen something that we thought just wasn't right. And I really wanted to have you here today with me because yes, we ask victims to speak out. Yes, we ask survivors to speak out. But I think we have to ask members of society to also speak out and give them the confidence to say something. Somebody always knows something, to say something. Again, maybe we need the education to know that things are done anonymously. I don't know. I'm getting so worried that us not speaking out is contributing. We're not committing the crime, but are we somehow complicit? And would you advise people to speak out, Besh? I really want you to tell people,
Healing can't come unless persons open up and speak out. And this is why, if ever someone were to speak to me or ask me about different experiences, I'm an open book in terms of sharing things like that. And I always refer and use my husband and myself as an example, because the early parts of our marriage, it would have been very traumatic for both of us. We were 20 and 21 when we got married. 20 and 21, and we came from very different backgrounds, and it felt very much as though on my side they didn't want to contribute in any way, because just in case, let's see, on his side
it mightn't work. Yeah.
And it's more or less, if these young people want to do it, they're on their own. So it's that same sense of they're on their own, when we need to have more openness and more willingness to embrace, especially couples now getting into marriage, need counseling. When my husband and I got married, we did not get any kind of counseling. And it was in the early stages of our marriage that I soon realized he had an inner child that needed healing. We all have inner children that needed healing. And when I, for myself, this is me taking the plank out of my own eye. I'm not looking for anyone else for reference. I'm looking at first-hand information coming from me. And it was when I really had the opportunity to look at this situation as though it were a TV screen in front of me and pulled myself out of it. I thought to myself, oh, I am not a saint. I have an inner child that needs healing too. There's so much growing up that I need as well. And when I started to work on myself, I realized he started to work on himself as well. And I'm not certain if you saw the program with my friend Narada and I. She always speaks about the Aloha Spirit. And she speaks of this practice that they have in which they get into this room and they will deal with issues in such a way in which they say, I'm sorry, I forgive you, thank you, I love you. And when I think about it, that's exactly the experience my husband and I had. Dr. Joe Dispenza says, get excited about the future. Forget the past, but get excited about the future.
Beautiful.
A counselor that we went to, because we were separated for quite some time. And it's because I needed time, he needed time. And when we went to a counselor, I remember the counselor giving us an exercise. He had to write a list of things with regards to me that he wanted to see improvement on, that he really could not go with. And I had to write a list. Right. And I remember the counselor saying, you need to forget these stinking, nasty, dirty words. And when my husband wrote his list,
right,
items. When I was writing my list, I was running out of paper. And
I know it. Yes.
Going at it. But I wrote all of that, and later on, when I was really willing to deal with me, I realized if I had paper to write about myself, there's a lot that I could write about as well. But everything is representative of not just this generation, what happened in the generation before, and the generation before, and the generation before. And even in looking at my family history and my husband's family history, I realized there were certain links that you could make. And one day I decided, and he too decided, it has to stop with us.
Yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. Yeah.
It's not going to continue. And I asked him a question once, and I said, why? Where did this change come from? I mean, I know I was praying, but hey,
Yeah.
God is good, but hey. And he
You
said,
had something to do with it.
and he said, surrender. I said, surrender? What do you mean? He said, I just surrender. And I found that that was profound. Surrender.
I love it. I love it.
Are
I
we,
love it.
are we willing to not fight? Are we willing to listen? Are we able to hit different sides?
Yeah.
Because there's always this quotation I love: be angry, but sin not in your anger. We have emotions, we have feelings. And I would always say emotions are visitors. Treat them well when they come to visit. They're not there to stay. So don't give these emotions the key to your master bedroom. Reserve that for yourself. And I have also learned that how you start things off in the morning, when you really get that sense of inner peace, praying, meditating, taking the time to do some journaling, and gratitude. Just saying, thank you.
Thank you.
When we challenge
100%.
our perception, I know so many beautiful things happen. And I know there's some who may think, she's saying that song is easy. And it's not easy. It is so hard.
No, it's not. It's not. It's when so many things are going on, and I mean, this is just tremendous, wonderful advice that you're giving, and I just want to make it clear to our viewers, this is not just advice to women. This is advice for people, for all of us, and we can all learn from that. This has just been such a great conversation. I've enjoyed it so much, and I know how long we can go on. I always say, just like we're asking other people to follow up, maybe we can do something ourselves to follow up, where we open the discussion to other women who may want to take part, but not on a public sort of forum such as this, but maybe we can do something together, which takes me, obviously, before we come to an end, tell us a bit about this project that you are doing, please.
That we are doing?
Yeah, that we are doing a little bit. Please tell our viewers, because it's such a wonderful cause, and I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to speak about it briefly.
I am happy we're getting the opportunity to speak about this, and thank you so much for allowing this conversation on your platform, because I've been following what you are doing, and it is amazing. Conversation, that is where it needs to start, having that dialogue and being open to speak as well as listen. So Virago, warrior woman, what is it about?
Virago. Tell them.
The idea really came because I was very impacted by our social climate at the beginning of the year. And I felt like we needed a conversation that wouldn't just be for a short period of time. We needed something that would be everlasting. We needed to not just keep our skeletons in the closet, but we needed to bring it out. Gone are the days in which persons would say, don't air your dirty laundry, then how would we be able to clean it? We need to be able to wash things and renew it. Just like the word Virago in itself. Today, some people would say, Virago, it has a negative meaning. It means tyrant, a woman who has mannish qualities. But the root of that word, where it was born, it means female warrior. And that is for each individual. We have that positive that we're born with. We're with this clean slate, white, pure. And then based on our experiences, based on the environment, based on everything that is coming in, someone may not see your light, but we need always to look to the light. And that is what Virago is about, sharing the challenges that various women of influence would have had, pulling out the lessons that they received throughout those character building periods. So you're giving strength to another sister. You're passing it on. You're okay with another sister being able to do better. You don't have to have it in such a way that your tears were in vain. You would have cried tears, you would have fought battles so someone can live better, so someone else would not have to cry those tears. And that is what Virago is about. It's about celebrating women and encouraging women to show up as the best versions of themselves. Find your voice, share your voice. We need it.
Absolutely. And of course we're doing a compilation of many together with many other women. We're doing a compilation of these stories which will come in the form of a book.
Yes.
If you could just talk a little bit about that we're doing this and the purpose of it, Mish, because it is your brainchild, and I don't want to take that away at all.
And with this, interesting that we're having this conversation, because we have chosen to gift Conflict Women with proceeds from this venture. Conflict Women is an organization in which they assist survivors of abuse, female survivors of abuse, and they help them develop businesses and coach them, give them workshops and seminars so they can do just what we are trying to do with Virago.
And I've got to say, I am honored, so honored that you've asked me to be part of it, and that I was able to contribute and to be in the presence with so many great women. We talk a lot, so it was beautiful to see action following up with that. And on that note, Michelle, you are just wonderful. I am so glad to have had you here with me. You're an inspiration. You're one of the hardest working women I know. I just do not know where you find the time in the day. And you have 4 beautiful children and a loving husband, and still find time for mom and all these things. You're just an inspiration. And we will continue the conversation. And I said we are sisters today, tomorrow, and always. And I'm always there for you.
You can't get rid of me. I'm here forever.
And you can't get rid of me. Thank you, my sister. Thank you so much for joining me. And I shall see you soon again.
Thank you, Mickela. All the best.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. All over the world, statistics are showing that violence against women, murders, rapes, beatings have worsened during the pandemic lockdown. Conditions created by the pandemic, including reduced mobility, heightened isolation, stress, and economic uncertainty, have led to an alarming spike in domestic violence. But we can't blame this solely on the pandemic. We have a serious problem of violence against women here in Trinidad and Tobago, which requires a serious approach to finding a solution which must be tackled in terms of prevention, detection, and rehabilitation. This can only be achieved if we all work together as a unit. Lawmakers, law enforcement, NGOs, educators, family members, friends, and loved ones. Let us not wait for another senseless loss of a precious life. In the link below, you will find contact information including family violence hotlines, counseling services, NGOs, and the police gender-based violence unit who offer the option of being taken into an undisclosed safe location. Or you can contact us directly. You are not alone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.